In this short video, I'm going to share with you the journey of one of our mentees, Kieran Roxburgh, who was on our mentorship program in 2020, and he's going to share with you some of the reasons why he joined us, and also what he's got on to within his property business now. So, Kieran, thanks for joining me this morning.
Thank you for inviting me.
So, perhaps you could tell me, where were you before you actually joined PMA?
So before I joined PMA, I'd actually just come back from a year in Australia. The reason I went there in the first place is to try and escape my existing 9-to-5 job that I didn't particularly enjoy. During my time away, I met some amazing people, did some amazing things. I felt on such a high, and then unfortunately due to COVID, I actually ended up returning on the first day of lockdown. So I'd basically dropped everything that I was doing at the time, went back to living with my family. After 3 months of unsuccessful job hunting, I actually ended up going back to my old employer, and that was a pretty low point for me. Due to doing the same journey that I'd been doing for the previous 2 years, meeting the same people, knowing where the traffic jam would start on the way to work. It was really demotivating for me, and I felt like I had all this energy and I was just limited to my old job again. And I would say my absolute lowest point was when I drove to work and then I parked up, and I remember saying to myself out loud in the car, I just don't want to be here. And that was the kind of point I knew that something needed to change. And then fortunately, I had a relative she'd sort of established herself in the property world. I know she's done quite a lot since then, but she sort of gave me a bit of an idea of what I can expect. My knowledge was really limited. I only knew I had a very basic understanding of what a buy-to-let was and how they worked. But since then, she then put me in touch with Mark, and it all went from there, really. So that was where I was at before my experience with PMA started.
Okay, great. So it was through your aunt, Kate, who I've interviewed previously on our channel here, and
Yeah.
great introduction. Recommendation is always the best way to start, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I did think that even if that recommendation hadn't have been there from my aunt Kate, we would have still crossed paths regardless. For me, especially with what drew me to PMA originally, was the professionalism with how the business presented themselves and how there was a customer focus as opposed to me being treated as a sale, which really put me off a lot of places before I joined PMA.
So what was it about the program that made you sign up?
So as I said previously, my knowledge within property was so limited. I didn't really have any guidance in terms of a particular strategy I wanted to look into. So when I spoke to Mark, it was actually last October. I was still living at my previous address in Essex at the time. I said I won't blag. I don't really know much about property at all. And then I think at the time you were in the early stages of putting together the PMA Elite online mentorship program, which is designed to give you an initial outline in the introduction of every different strategy. From there, you can then specify what you'd like to look into, and then you can sort of channel all of your time into a particular strategy. And for me, that was sourcing.
Okay, that's brilliant. And yeah, it's designed to help you focus in on one or two strategies. So you've joined the program. What happened next?
So I got access to every online portal. I had access to Mark, Jackie, and Peter, who were the three mentors on the course at any given time. We had weekly Zoom sessions. I then, as I said, started to look into sourcing, so I had access to all the masterclass sessions, all the contracts, all information on how to be compliant, how to identify a deal, everything you would need skills-wise to make sure that you had a basic understanding of how to source initially, and then as you grew in terms of gaining knowledge, you could then take that and then apply it to an investor or a deal, regardless of where you were, and you knew what factors to look for when you were sourcing in an area that was new to you, or even an area you were familiar with.
Okay, and so what happened next? What were your results?
So when I was given the opportunity in February, so as I said, my previous address was in Essex, which is regarded as being quite an expensive area of the country to live. I wanted to not only source properties, but I wanted to have the ability to buy my own properties, because I was fortunate enough to be able to save when I was in Australia, and then from my previous job, I managed to build up some savings. So I wanted to try and invest myself as well. So I was given the opportunity to move closer to where my aunt was investing, which is in the northeast, and where properties are significantly cheaper than Essex. So I moved there to try and source properties for investors. And since then, so this was February, so we're 6 months on, I've managed to, on average, do one sourcing deal a month. Mainly single let properties, and then I've done one HMO as well, and then I've also purchased 2 of my own properties, and I've just had an offer accepted on a third. So it's going really well since then, and I still use the same contracts, the same agreements, the same deal analyzers that I was given. Everything works. Everything is fantastic in terms of presenting to an investor, and it makes sure I'm covered and I do everything properly, and everything's done in a compliant way as well.
That's absolutely brilliant, Kieran. So how does that make you feel?
Brilliant, because I had a vision when I was driving to work on my first day back, when I said I really didn't want to be here. To me, I wanted to find a job where I worked my own hours, and I sort of had something behind me. In this case, that's a property, and I wanted something where, because my travels were cut short, I wanted to go traveling again, but have the reassurance that I had something behind me if I was away and something went wrong, like it did last time, for example, COVID. So since then, because of the property portfolio I've managed to build myself, and the sourcing deals I've done, the relationships I've built, all of those things are now a possibility. And I can now feel much more confident that if I do decide to go traveling again, or I do go into a different area, I've got the skills and the properties behind me to make sure that any move I make is that much more comfortable. And I get an amazing feeling from it. The people I meet, not meeting necessarily the same people every day. It's such a big community. Anything property related, there are so many different methods of investing, and I think it's fantastic. I haven't looked back since I moved to the northeast in February.
That's brilliant. So from when you started to where you are now, what would you say the transformation has been?
Difficult. I would say, I would say it's definitely not been easy. The most difficult thing, or the bit that changed for me the most, was when I did my first sourcing deal, because there was quite a long period of time. I think for the first few months it was mainly revision based, and then something clicked in my head that said, I've got all of this information now. It's, that's one side of it. The other side is actually doing it and applying what you know, taking it into the real world, and finding a deal and presenting it to an investor. And that was for me, that I felt that was the biggest sort of transitional period for me, when I actually went out there. And I remember my aunt and I sitting down, and I said to her, I'm not really sure what I should be looking at, because there are so many properties. So we specified a search, and we looked for 2-bedroom properties in an area, and I viewed every 2-bedroom property within a certain suburb within a month, which was about 30 properties. And from there, we managed to get one deal for me, which I now own. And then I also managed to source one as well. So that, for me, the biggest transitional period for me was going out there and doing what I had been learning about for a few months. That was the biggest change for me.
Brilliant. Okay, so what would you recommend people do if they were in a similar situation to you?
I would say when it comes to sourcing or any form of property investing, I would say do everything properly. Mark and I have had a chat about this a few times before, and when I started out doing the masterclasses and revision sessions last November, and even Peter said this as well. He said, although there are a fair few people out there who do try and source, a lot of them do it badly, which, although it might seem initially off-putting because you see that there may be more people doing it than you imagined, if a lot of them do them badly, then there's definitely a gap in the property world for someone to come along and actually do a really good job, which is what I'm trying to do. And I would also say that in the initial stages of getting into property investing or sourcing or rent to rent or purchase lease option or whatever you might consider doing in property, build a solid foundation, which will definitely give you the skills for the future. For me, that was through Property Master Academy, because they gave me everything I needed to get started. And it's very easy to think you know everything when one or two deals go your way or a couple of events go your way in quick succession, and then you realize the next day something unexpected happens or something goes wrong, and I think you you then realize that you're not quite as good as you thought. So I think it's really good to have a mentor behind you as well who keeps you grounded and gives you advice, because you'll never know everything there is to know about property. I mean, I had a meeting last week with someone who had been investing in property for 20 years, and he kept on reiterating the fact that although he's been doing it for such a long time, he always learns something new every day. And it's really good to have a mentor behind you, because it keeps you in that mindset, which for me in the early stages I really need, because it's really easy for me to be a bull in a china shop and think I know one thing and then completely go off on a tangent and think I know everything, when the reality is not it's not that. So
all right, well, I really appreciate you taking the time to join me today, Kieran. So if you've liked this video, then please make sure you hit that like button. Also subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell so that you get notified when other videos arise. If you'd like to schedule a strategy call with me to see what we can do to help you in your property investing journey, then you'll find a link in the comments below. Hope you found this video useful. There'll be some more videos appearing on your screen right now which will help you in your property journey. And thanks once again for listening.